So we hit 1,700 subscribers today. Thank you very much. Another milestone. Gonna trip over my words here. Wanted to show another little update to the Ornithopter build here because might as well justify the video. And I'm really happy with this so far. It just keeps getting more and more exciting. Again, still trying to keep it consistent with what LEGO was doing for around this price point. But this is where we are at now, now with these Terex blades, 3 of them, in fact, on the back area, which not only, again, adds that ornate kind of feel to that, not that the other sword didn't have a very nice sleek shape to it, but it also widens it, as you can see in the back end. So these sort of tubes run in line with it. Essentially, it has this teardrop shape, if you can kind of see it here, right? Or I guess triangular shape, more or less. And I really like that. It has that kind of same shape, from the side profile as well. So it really just fits together well. I don't know. I'll show you it real quick in studio too, because I actually wanted to test out different wings on it. But they're a wing piece I don't have. Studio does not have the Monkey Kid wing blade piece that I would like it to have, though. So let's hop over there. Instead, I'm using this piece introduced with Ninjago. Currently, this would not actually work for a couple of reasons. Partially because it's heavy. There's 4 pieces involved with each of these wings, although I'm considering them 1 piece per wing because, again, I would likely be using the Monkey Kid sword instead. But also, you can see that they overlap the front and back wings here, and that's a problem because those wings need to be able to pass each other, but if they overlap, they can't pass, right? Because they'll collide. So there are ways around that, of course. Very easily you could adjust the angle of the wings themselves, but again, each time you're doing this, you're adding more and more parts, and because I'm aiming for this to be filling the $20 roll as a set, I can't add more parts, right? It's at 165 now, which is 10 to 15-ish more parts than the Syndox set, and the Syndox is obviously larger than the Voltras from 2008. So I can't just keep adding more and more and more and more pieces to make it look cooler, right? So the other propeller blades were just fine as well, but I do think in this case here, the Terex blades really sort of cement their use, right? Another thing that I changed also was adding in a second lift arm here. That's also added into the body as well, just because, ignore that, but just because the tail on this is literally held in normally from just 1 piece that relies on a pretty notably fragile connection. So I opted to strengthen it using a set of thinner lift arms, which are just beneath the Borak eye you can see on the model here, right? Well, adding a lift arm directly above that further structurally reinforces it, and I also added some pieces to the side on the front as well to reinforce that. That way, because there are some rubber bands underneath here that help pull the trigger mechanism, they don't, just pull those and make things much worse, right? Because otherwise it's putting tension on that whole front end, and that can end up being a problem, especially because, again, using a known fragile piece. Not a piece that's fragile in the sense of like, oh, it's going to break, but it's just a flawed design by LEGO. So thankfully, more current versions of it are much better, but you can't always guarantee that you're going to have the current version. And of course, you want to mitigate that wherever you can, right? If parts break because of LEGO, that's LEGO's fault. But if parts break because of bad design, well, you want to fix that, right? So really, really happy with just how everything is looking. As I mentioned, 165 pieces on it so far. That includes the hand bars, on the actual model itself, the Thornax launcher on the bottom here. So it is definitely at that upper limit, I think, for Bionicle, for $20 sort of set. But I really think this is worth it in this current state here. So hopefully Studio adds the Monkey Kid sword just so we have that to play around with. I don't mind the thinner swords either. I think they do have a really interesting aesthetic to them, even if you might think, oh, well, how can that fly if those wings are so thin? It's a fantasy, right? At the end of the day. So I don't mind that they're thin. I think it actually gives a really interesting kind of a wispy aesthetic that I like. But yeah, at the end of the day, the Monkey Kid swirly sword has just a much more elegant shape to it that leans into the sort of swirly shape that is prevalent on this design. So really happy with that one. If you guys did enjoy this one, then thank you very much. And thank you all so much for 1,700 subscribers. Honestly, I don't know what to say. Like, I fell asleep last night after putting out a video that honestly I didn't think was going to go like super well. Not that it would have gone bad by any means, but it was a video just about the old Ornithopter build, about the Teryx weapons. You know, it seemed pretty normal, but yeah, I woke up this morning and had like 1,700 views on it, and I was like, okay, like cool. Why? So it was interesting, right? And yeah, that video obviously featured heavily the older version of the Ornithopter build that I was working on yesterday. But just wasn't happy with it, and that's okay. You know, it's a cool build, it's a fun build. I like where it was going, just not for the aesthetic I was going for. I already mentioned this in a video, you all know that. The last thing I want to mention too before I end this had to do with CCBS. So I do plan on putting out a video sort of talking about my thoughts on CCBS as a whole, as a building system, and why I kind of consider it a fundamentally flawed system. That's not to say that it's bad, because I don't think that it is, but flawed in the sense of the design philosophy of Lego sets, right? There are a lot of people that will make the argument, and I think rightfully so, that CCBS is the most Lego construction theme, right? At least up until SCCBS, which is literally built around system pieces. That makes sense. But I can see where that argument comes from. Again, this will be its own separate video, but suffice to say, I think that in a nutshell, the nature of CCBS as it stands is fundamentally flawed, mostly because of, well, the name, honestly. Again, it's a building system. I'll talk about it in its own dedicated video, because there's a lot to love about it, but I mean, I have literal, boxes full of parts, not boxes, but bins full of parts for it. So I can't complain too much, guys. And yeah, there's just something I noticed earlier today that's very different from what I've seen other people cover about CCBS. People have defended it, people have attacked it. But specifically, a lot of people, when they're criticizing CCBS's use in Generation 2 Bionicle, do so in the comparison of Generation 1 Bionicle. I haven't seen as many people criticize it with a view on Hero Factory, though, the system that, or the theme rather, that introduced the system. Anyway, so I could sit here babbling on it, but like I said, it'll be its own separate video. If that's something you guys are interested in, then hey, make sure you're subscribed. And of course, as always, you can find links for my Instagram, my Discord, and my Patreon if you want to help support this channel and get some perks down in the description below. And yeah, I'm really excited for this. So thank you again for 1,700. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.